Hello, welcome to Zatu. Today I am presenting to you the ZatChat, a little show where me and some of the bloggers or perhaps some other guests talk about topics in board games and how we approach them. Today we're talking about board game etiquette, which we may have to do another chat about because it took a lot longer than I was expecting. So in general, these will hopefully be more around the 20 minutes to half an hour mark. However, you can dip in and out and give us some ideas for our future episodes. Enjoy and see you soon. Hello, welcome to the first of potentially just one ZatChat. The aim of these is just to have a quick chat with some of our blogging team about some of the foibles and funniness around board games, and we thought we'd start with the topic of board game etiquette. Today I'm joined by Tom. I've looked the right way for once. Tom Harrod, not from Harrods. Have you worked in Harrods, Tom?
No. I'm going to inherit it in about, a couple of generations' time.
Missed opportunity.
That's.
And Nick T. So we do, in fact, have a Tom between two Nicks, which is something. I was going to say beautiful. I couldn't quite commit to it.
No.
So people will know me from the YouTube and the live Zatu stuff. Tom, why don't you give us an introduction to yourself?
Hello, I'm Tom you might know me from Berry Board Games. That's my Instagram account. I do some how to play guides on there, as well as take silly photos of board games. I do some board game reviews for Zatu as well, and also I run some Dungeons and Dragons stuff as well.
Yes, and that's, just so there's no confusion, that's Bury the Place. Tom's not a
yes,
board
Nick.
Game. He's not a board game.
I need to clarify this. I don't physically shovel and bury all of the bad board games.
There's a gap in the market.
Maybe I should, but I'm from a town called Bury St Edmunds.
I thought your Kallax was full and you just had to make extra room.
That's interesting.
What board game would you be buried with, Tom? If you had to be buried with a board game, what one would you be buried with?
Oh, I think it might be Lewis and Clark.
Oh.
Okay. See, that's interesting. You went for one.
That might be a prime spot just behind me right there.
Yeah, you go for one you liked. I'd be buried with every single copy of Catan, so no one had to play it again. Cremated. Nick, other Nick, slightly less good Nick. Why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, what you do on socials medias?
So, like Tom, I'm on Instagram. Have a community there with at Board Game Review UK. Got my own website as well where I do my reviews, but obviously I'm a guest blogger for Zatu too here.
Excellent. So we're going to talk about board game etiquette today. This, from my point of view, will be very much on kind of the people coming around to my house. But Tom, in the middle there, also has lots of experience running or being part of quite an active club. And Nick has more children than the rest of us. So, 26. So we've got some unique opinions coming there. First, I'll tell you my board game etiquette horror story, which is around snacks. I am medically addicted to Pepsi Cola, so I always have a glass, and I like these. Yeah, I like these. Look, matching glasses. Oh no.
No, I didn't get the memo.
I like these tall glasses because I know they don't have mooring because I've tested it, but they look like they've got mooring. And I've got big old hands. You wanna be gripping something big. So
we can just cut that, right?
There is always. We can, but I'm doing it. So I have doused a board game in a fluid pint of Pepsi Cola. Fortunately, the board game was my own. It was Santa Maria, and remarkably, I don't know what cardboard it's made of, but it came out. We all acted very quickly, got the tea towels out, the pressed it between things, and there's not even a blemish now. I do have a track record on this because I also, when I was a child, spilt red wine, wasn't my drink, on my auntie's copy of Pictionary. Hence, my family ended up with a second-hand copy of Pictionary. Any horror stories of board game etiquette you can share with us, guys?
Well, my boys have doused a couple of games in water. One of them didn't fare quite so well as yours. It was a card game, and just the edges just start to buckle and curl just along the edge of the card, which is really rather painful. And more than one card has got light creasing, so you know what's coming on some other games, particularly Top Trump's Match, because they don't put them away properly. They just close the lid and that's it, rattling around forever.
Yeah, my copy of Bandida, the newer one, not Bandido, got watered by a toddler, and everyone was too quick to put the towels on, so they took the backing of the cards off with them. I was so upset I gave it to my sister. Tom, have you got any horror stories? Not necessarily about food and drink.
Yeah, I've actually spilt a drink on someone else's card game before, and it was mortifying, to say the least. Genuinely, I felt so terrible about it. And ever since then, I now, if I go, before COVID, I used to run a board game group in a pub, and I always used to leave my drink actually not even on the table, on a window ledge, like meters away from me, because I just didn't trust myself after that moment. So unfortunately, I had to learn the hard way.
With handles on both sides and a little...
I need one of those Tommy Tippies. There you go. That's what I need.
What game was it, Tom?
It was a card game. I think it might have been a game like Unstable Unicorns or something like that. And what made it even worse was I wasn't enjoying the game at the time, and it looks like I deliberately not the case at all. It made me feel even worse because I was so paranoid, thinking the owner of this game is going to think I've done, but it was a genuine mistake, just a clumsy idiot move from me, and I was mortified.
Board game etiquette.
I mean, I assume we all have a little bit of a pet hate for like Wotsits and Doritos anywhere near a board game. I mean, that might be high up on the no-nos.
I tend to be quite relaxed about other people's kind of eating, and I try to not, but I do. The other one that really gets me is kids doing this with the cards.
Bending them like...
If I scrunch it up, I'll be able to see it more clearly. That gets me more than food, because like I try... but food is a big one. I don't mind drinks because I'm the clumsiest person. No one else has spilt a drink on any of my games. Food is an interesting one.
Some food's okay. I'm all right with some food, but just Wotsits and Doritos particularly, I get a bit scratchy about.
Nachos.
They just encourage the sort of cheese dust, don't they? The cheese dust. And of course, if you're holding hands, holding cards, of course. Holding hands under the table, you know. If you're, of course, holding cards, that's just... The interesting thing is, I think I played games with a board game community, or at least I did before COVID, and I think there's sort of an unwritten acceptance that you don't, if you go to someone's house, for example, and you're a group of gamers, you probably won't bring, say, Wotsits. You'd bring a snack that might be more board game friendly in terms of if people are touching.
But this is about etiquette for those that are uneducated in these ways. So don't take Wotsits to a board game party.
I have to say, like, when because a lot of my friends, I've been further into board games than they have, so they've been learning. And I've never sat down and talked about the acidic nature of crisps. And it's ironic, isn't it, that the least healthy thing, the Pepsi, did the least damage, whereas water absolutely wrecks the games. The Pepsi was just like... It's meant to just like boil and fizz and turn into an acid, a vat of acid, but no. There's also, of course, things like, are you guys often the rule givers in your group?
Yeah.
So have you got any board game etiquette around giving rules?
Particular pet hate. My eldest son, who plays a lot of board games with me, loves to jump about 4 steps ahead and say, "What if?" And you get to that point where you go, "Right, this is what we do. This is what if?" Yeah, well, I might come to that, but can I teach you in its own order?
I have a mark.
He's a classic for it. But what if? And how about? No, wait. Just we'll get there. We'll get there.
I think normally, as the rules teacher, you plan a rough script of how can I realistically explain this in the most digestible manner. But by you doing that, you've decided I'm going to explain this first, and then or this first, and then we'll go and then go into a more minute details. But the thing is that some people, like maybe your son, have already started to strategize, and they are thinking quicker than you can explain.
Yeah.
And I've found that, and sometimes if you teach people who aren't maybe familiar with that, they will just jump in and ask and ask and ask. While I've noticed with my board game friends, they just, because they teach games as well, they know just to be quiet, and they'll ask questions at the end as if it's like some sort of PowerPoint presentation.
I think it is on logic, isn't it, how people's minds work. So I'm saying, this is how you get this resource, this is how you get this resource, and then someone's like, right, what do I do with this one? And they can't process how they get the next one until they know what they've got to use that for. But I'm thinking that's part of a complicated recipe. We'll get to that. The one I have quite a lot with my group is particular. I don't mind phones, okay, so I'm quite relaxed on phones around the table, because it's just our life these days. So I want to be quite chilled out on that. But I find phones hard when rules are being read. I don't want to say someone can't multitask, but then what sometimes happens is we've got some people who are be on their phones, some people who are only 19 years old but have the mind of a 2,000-year-old corpse and therefore can't retain any information. So I'll just literally have finished explaining a section, then the person on the phone will go, "Oh, but how do you do this?" which is literally the section that I've just explained. I'll explain it again, and then the 19-year-old with the 2,000-year-old brain will go, "Oh, okay, but what about this?" And it's the same thing again. And then sometimes the phone one will ask again. It's like, I swear they're trolling me at times. And then...
So,
yeah, go on.
Sorry, a little bit of a problem with phones, but I do and I don't. It's a love-hate relationship. But going back to the rules, I've just remembered the other type of rule person that I encounter more often than not, and that is my wife. And I'm not even going to say...
around my wife.
Whisper because I don't think she can hear me, but it's my wife who I start reading rules and she goes and she just stares. And and I'm like, so, and then she'll go, "No, we'll just stop playing, I'll get it." I've just spent half an hour digesting this and relaying it, and you go, "Yeah, no, we'll just learn how we play." I'm like, "Oh, why don't I bother?" Anyway,
I have started to, with my family particularly, have more and more set up and explain it as we go.
Yeah.
My wife's similar, but she just gives me a face that she wants to kill me as soon as I start any rule explanation, and I'm like, "Is that your resting face? Is this boring you?" And then I'm thinking about all those things rather than communicating the rules. But yeah, what about your opinion on phones? Because we'll all have different opinions.
My opinion is the reason I like board games is because I am fully. I'll admit, I spend too much time on my phone. So I like analog games because it means, in theory, I'm not staring at a screen. Now, I do appreciate that some people rely on a phone for, it might be a way of dealing with an anxiety or something like that. They need a phone or something to fiddle with. I know there are people that have said things like that before. And from that point of view, I feel bad for giving them a passive-aggressive glare because they're on their phone while I'm teaching rules. When they are listening, they need that little comfort device, I suppose. I do think I do agree, though, that if you've gone to a lot of effort to learn a game and to teach it to an almost meticulous manner, where you've pretty much memorised a 30-odd page rulebook, and they're not listening because they are playing Candy Crush or whatever on their phone, then I must admit I wouldn't ever say anything, but I'd be absolutely just.
I wasn't playing. I was taking pictures of you. I do think I will have to confess that I'm probably, out of the three of us, I'm getting the sense that I'm probably the laziest rule teacher. That I will read it, but I don't necessarily plan. I'm a bit of a kind of spur of the moment in that sense. But I have learnt through that. So I think my method is more kind of learnt that I then apply. And one thing I've started doing, because the other thing I was going to say about doing the rules is the other pet hate is when you've taught all the rules, you miss out one thing, or you only say it once when they weren't listening, and then you remember it at a crucial point that's good for you, but they're like, "Oh,
it's terrible.
well, you just
by the way,
neglected to tell us that." And I'm like, "Come on, well, you read the rules then." But I do keep the rule book handy all the time now, because I used to. People would say, "Oh, can I just check this rule?" And I'd be like, "No, it's not." And then I thought, you know what? That's just a little bit, because of who I am. It could come across a little bit arrogant. I don't know if you've noticed that about me. So now I always say, "No, I think it's like this," and then I remember and I go, "Oh, but I will just check," because I have been wrong on occasions. Sometimes almost half. So now I just go and double check, and I think. Part of that is an erosion of my confidence from all these little knocks, and part of it is wanting to be more, even if I know it, maybe it's good to check, and maybe next time they'll check. And I do have this other little tick when other people take the rule books, because I'm worried they're checking up that I've got something right. So I'm not thinking they're looking for something for them. I'm thinking this is a judgment on my rule book.
I don't have an issue with that, but I have experienced the same. And it's probably because I think some people ask that because they've thought of something what they perceive as really clever, and they don't want to ask you the rule because it's going to give away their strategy. At least that's the theory I've got. So they'll check the rule book and check, can I do this because it will let me do this, or am I breaking the rules by doing that? But they don't want to ask you because then you'll think, well, I better come here and block you then to do that. But I don't have a problem with that, especially if I'm having only taught the game once or twice, and we're all learning the game together effectively.
What about player aids then? So some games have these beautiful player aids. You do the rules, you point out the player aid, and then someone still asks you what happens next, and you're like, if you just it's just written down, just on the board that you're using for the whole game. It's just the order's just written down. Oh no, I just wanted to check. Oh yeah. You ever had any of that?
I have experienced that, but to be honest, I think player aids are a blessing rather than a hindrance.
Oh yeah, I think they are.
Overall, I think their strengths will outweigh any frustration you might get if people just simply don't read them. Because in theory, it makes your life easier when it comes to teaching, right? You can say, and probably say it a number of times during the teach, it's all written on the player aid, all down there, and actually physically, they can read that while you're doing your rules teach or whatever.
Do you think that, because I had an interesting conversation with someone who felt that they've been playing games for 30 years, so I should adhere to that 30-year-old etiquette, or do you think etiquette is an evolving thing? Like we've talked about phones a little bit, obviously, whether we like it or agree with it or not, phones are not going away. They might all be in our eyeballs at some stage, so we wouldn't even be able to tell if someone was also watching YouTube how to plays and best strategies always win FTW. What do you think about board gaming etiquette? Are there some steadfast rules that should always be applied, like Cheezos?
Yeah, they should be banned forever, surely. I mean, they must be nuclear anyway. I'm surprised they haven't been struck off. But I think anything's evolving, and it's what everyone's comfortable with. I don't ban food at the table. I don't ban mobile phones. I try to leave my phone to one side, like Tom. Board games are my way of unplugging and playing in that way. But on the flip side of the coin, I'm the first one to go, oh, that looks like a cool shot for Instagram. One sec.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
So, can't there go, oh, you can't use your phone, because I'm just as guilty of it as the next person. So no, things do evolve. Everything evolves. I mean, cripes, otherwise we'd all be playing Catan and Monopoly still. So thank God they evolved. No, I mean, this is a good thing, but it's survival of the fittest.
My justification for having my phone there is for photos, for reviews and stuff, so I don't have to set it up later on, and then I always forget to take them, which I suppose is what Tom's saying about getting lost in the thing. I was thinking, Tom, perhaps one suggestion for people who like to fiddle with something is provide fidget spinners with every rule game through.
Well, jump back a couple of questions. You were saying about, of course, people like having things to fiddle with. I think that when it comes to teaching, I don't think there's one way of teaching that will translate to everyone. I think you might need to adapt your teaching style depending on who you're teaching to. And some people who do like having stuff to fiddle with, I would let them help me set up the board and make sure they've got their player pieces, their little meeples, their coins or whatever it is, so they can fiddle with those during setup, rather than me holding it all back and then giving you a plastic baggie full of all of your player pieces at the end of the teach. If they've got those things in front of them, then they can...
How many Tom Harrod gold stars do we need to get before we can help you set up the board?
Well, you need to have at least played 5 games with me first, where you're not involved at all, and then it's an evaluation one-on-one process. Yeah.
Brilliant. I'll put my applications in the post.
Yep.
One thing I found chatting to gamers at conventions is that there's some stereotypes, kind of around board game etiquette, of the players. So we have the analysis paralysis player who always, but my analysis paralysis player isn't because he does anything good. It's because he generally doesn't know, because he's got the mind of a 2,000-year-old, as I've mentioned, and he's just like, and then he'll start asking a question about something that's not even game related, and we're like, just take your turn. Oh, I don't know what to do. Well, we're like, well, do something. And the funny thing is that 90% of the time, the thing he does costs him, not us. Like, it's so inefficient. But I also have one that a guy that I nicknamed the Dirty Loophole, because he would always ask rule questions as he was about to take an action that would somehow indicate that he wanted to break the rules to do, oh, well, this doesn't say I can't do it more than once, or do you know what I mean? But cleverer than that. And what I kind of realise is that's just, I'm not very strategic, I'm not very clever at the games, I just enjoy playing them. So like, I don't necessarily go in with I might go in and do this strategy, but then I get distracted because someone else is doing something else. I think, oh, that looks good. Whereas he's like, he's got the invisible chalkboard in front of him that he's doing all these equations on clearly, and that's the reason he's asking the rules, not because he wants to create a loophole, but he's kind of thinking, oh, if I can do it that way, then I'll get even more. But yeah, it's sometimes a bit like, I feel like me calling in the dirty loophole was a bit of a negative reaction to it happening so many times. And again, to my own insecurity about reading the rules because of everything that's gone off. But yeah, do you have people who you've got your stereotypes?
I dread to think what people would think about me.
I tell you.
I think I in the past have suffered with analysis paralysis, and I think it's mainly because people say plan your turn during the downtime of other people's turns, right? And that of course makes a lot of sense. But when you're learning a game for the first time, you might be watching other people on their turn, seeing how does this work, and you're watching their example turn. Well, their turn as an example, so you can see, so that's what that space means if I want to go there on a later turn, which then means you don't have as much time to think on your turn. I shouldn't be defending myself. I should just experiment. I think that's maybe a bit pig-headed of me, though, in that maybe I'm too competitive, and I go into the first game of ever playing something wanting to try and do as well as possible, rather than just experimenting and seeing, hey, it doesn't matter if I come last. I now have a better grasp of the game. So I probably am that guy, unfortunately.
I get the impression you, Nick, are more of a Pistol Pete, just...
Just go, bam, bam, bam. Yeah, no, I have all sorts of difficulties. So I identify with the 5-year-old player that just, in like something like Dream Home, I want that room, regardless of whether it's me or not. I want that room because it's got an octopus in the bathroom, and I want that. But you don't need it, and it's not your turn yet. Well, if you take it, I'm going to cry for half an hour. Fine. Have the octopus in the bathroom. It's not worth it. So there's that. I've got that 5-year-old player, which does mix things up because sometimes he'll just go for the first player all the time. So you get to choose the first player the next time. And you're like, this doesn't make any sense. But OK, your game, you play how you want to play. So I like that. The analysis paralysis is a difficult thing for me because I understand it. And some games sort of force it upon you because it changes so much during a turn. All of a sudden you go, I want that card in the same way as my little 5-year-old would. But by the time it comes around to your turn, it's not available. So you've got to be reactive in some way. I try not to let it ruin everyone's fun. I will sort of almost set myself a limit and go, I'll just have that one. That'll do. I'll make it work. And so I am, I guess I'm more of a reactive player than that.
Okay, cool. We talked a lot about kind of etiquette from our point of views as generally the hosts or the rule readers. Tom, you've got a lot of experience in club, in a club. And obviously inclusivity is a big issue within board games and the world at the minute. How does your club do on inclusivity and kind of the issues around etiquette on that? Without trying to be specific and too, how would you welcome a new player and get them the information they need, as it were?
That's really interesting because that you mentioned inclusivity, which is a really hard word to say, isn't it? Inclusivity. Yeah. I do think that is one of the core philosophies of running a board game community. I think we all probably know of, or maybe sometimes have been guilty of, board game snobbery. And when people join a new club, I think it's really important to have someone there who is almost like a welcomer. Because I host my board game, I'm saying all this in present tense, before COVID, of course. I haven't met anyone in this nature since March. We used to have a weekly board game meetup at a village pub. And normally some people might show up looking a little bit awkward, shifting their feet, but we'd always make sure that someone goes over there and say, oh, you're here for board games, and we'd usher them over and ask them, they'll, make some nice small talk and ask them, what kind of games do you like? And I think one of the really important things is with new people like that is not saying, right, we're going to play Tzolk'in tonight, or, something like one of these quite a crunchy, medium heavy Euro game. Sometimes you have to try and find out what kind of games do they like. If they like Catan, you might end up playing something of a similar weight with them. Like I've got, for example, Takanoko, or another sort of classic gateway game. If you like this, you might like this. I think it's really unfair to think, right, you're going to play what I want to play because I've just got a new heavy Euro dry beige board game. I know you're new, but you're going to play it with me. Otherwise they'll never come back. And luckily, we've got a big enough group, and people all bring bags of games. So there's always more games than there are people at these events. So there's always going to be something for everyone. So yeah, I think it's trying to find out what they like, and sometimes you might have to accept that, right, for this, I might not play the game I want to play tonight, but that's okay because next week I might get to play what the beige dry Euro, but this week I'm going to play something and
with at least 2 colours in
it. yeah. Probably a shade of green as well.
With regard to inclusivity, I don't do the club scene or in quite the same way. My dancing skills aren't good enough for a club scene like Tom But I do find that the community is very inclusive. And I don't know about you guys, but one of the reasons I chose to write the blogs was to share the love and the passion and say to new people more than the established people, look, come and play this because this is really exciting. And this will get your family round a table and talking and interacting and having a laugh more than you all sat around the TV watching whatever you're going to watch. So I think part of the excitement for me is that inclusivity of trying to garner and gather people around and go, look, this is how modern board games are. It's not just Monopoly. It's not just Cluedo. Look, it's cool.
Yeah.
So go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say that we, in terms of advertising a board game community, we had a Facebook group, and I think it was private, so you had to request to join. But once you had joined, we made sure that we welcome people online in advance, so they'd feel like they were part of the community online, because we had quite an active community online, people posting every day, and they're posting pictures or asking questions, and people felt like that online space was somewhere safe that they could ask questions where they're not going to feel, oh, could you recommend me a game that's like Carcassonne? And they won't get, pushed aside for asking what they might fear is a silly question. That was no such thing. And hopefully, if they then feel comfortable from that online presence, they'll feel confident enough, which is a big deal, going to a board game community, sometimes on your own, because your partner or whoever might not want to go with you. So you drive out to a random pub in the middle of a village somewhere, and you're going to meet some board game weirdos. Because I did, that's what I had to do the first time I went to this club, and I was really quite nervous. But luckily, the people there were really welcoming. And afterwards, I realised I had nothing to worry about. But that first initial step, I think, is one potential barrier to why more people don't play board games.
Yeah, definitely. To finish with, then let's go for this question. So, how do we deal with etiquette breakers? Be that the crisps, the drink, the phone, or more serious stuff like perhaps cheating, perhaps making other people not feel inclusive. How would you deal with that stuff? Obviously, it's going to be a different answer for Nick to Tom, but what are your thoughts? And because obviously, inclusivity works for my money. Inclusivity works both ways, and unless someone's being deliberately obnoxious, I don't want to make it a place that's not for them. But obviously, there does have to be some kind of putting the needs of the group before everyone. If everyone does that, that's kind of where I fall. But in practice, I've not had to put that into practice yet. So it's all very theoretical. So I'd love to hear your two thoughts.
Well, I'm one of the admins, probably again, before COVID, the most active admin on this Facebook group that we have, and there's about 250 members. Oh. So it's not anywhere like the big ones that you see within the UK. The board game trade and chats has got, I don't know, 18,000 or 17 million or however many people there are in that group now. But there's certainly enough people there now that it's very much in danger if you can't just let it be an organic thing. Unfortunately, you do need to have some sort of structure or rules to how a game night works. Otherwise, people could end up getting upset if so-and-so does this, or a drink gets spilled and nothing's said about it, for example. So unfortunately, the philosophy I have is that always you try and, from the social media side of things, you're not going to just berate people publicly. You message someone privately and have a civilized conversation with them that way, rather than have the dirty laundry in a public Facebook group, for example. And unfortunately, I have had to sort of have conversations with people before who might have been a bit disruptive or whatever. But that's when you've got a group of 250 people, you're going to get a wider array of characters, and of course, sometimes you have to deal with that.
And I guess taking it back to that person, then their reaction to that is how they want to carry, if they react badly and think they're the victim, or, then perhaps that, they're not ready to be part of that community. Whereas if they say, oh heck, I didn't even realise that. Could you tell me?
Absolutely. Often people don't even realise they've done anything wrong.
Yeah.
And of course, I think the worst thing you can do is not say anything, and maybe just sort of, give them an annoyed look from across the pub, for example, because that's not going to help anyone.
And
unfortunately,
it's to the other admins privately.
Yeah, but of course, I think my particular board game group are to like Euro style board games, and as you know, that doesn't usually involve too much direct conflict. And of course, having to tell someone they're doing something that is causing conflict in itself causes conflict. So I think for that reason, it's something that's very difficult. But most of the time, people are very, very apologetic if they realise they've done something that inadvertently that they didn't even realise there was an issue. But for someone else, it was an issue.
Nick, any wise words? Because as well as being a dad, you're also the oldest out of us.
Just. No, well, obviously I've got the naughty step, which is the benefit. But my wife,
I should really consider that.
Get a bit annoyed because 40 minutes is a long time on a step. So I try to stop using that where possible. No, I'm very lucky. My boys love playing games, and they love to win, but not to the point where they feel like they have to cheat. So the thing I normally get is when I'm not playing a game and they're playing a game together, and all of a sudden the rules are slightly melding, changing to benefit one of them. It's not direct cheating as such. They're just bending the elastic as much as they can before it breaks. And at that point, you just have to wade in and be a parent and be a bit of a grumpy dad. And throw the board across the table, hold them upside down by their legs, or put them in the
dirty loopholes.
Yeah, exactly that. And then understairs cupboard is the last resort.
Yeah. We've covered quite a big topic there. So that's just some initial thoughts on board game etiquette. Maybe you weren't even aware that Whatsits and Cheesy Crisps weren't allowed at the board game tables, as has been deigned since the beginning of the earth. But if you've got any questions, chuck them in the comments, hit us up on social media. If you'd like a topic to be addressed by our bloggers, then we'll try and do that in a way where we get the best bloggers for that situation. Like, I'm already thinking it'd be good to get Nick on again as a parent, do some board game parenting. I think we've got a couple of other parents in there, but anything topic wise that you'd like to hear a little bit of a chat on, do let us know, and we'll see you next time. Thanks to Tom, thanks to Nick. Bye
bye.
So thanks for watching our first ZatChat. Do remember to like and subscribe to us here on YouTube, hit the bell for notifications, and we are live on Twitch every Thursday, Facebook every Wednesday, and do remember us on Twitter and Instagram as well. Hope you're having a great day. We will see you soon.